Let's face it, the J2EE framework is quite complicated to use. You have to do a lot of steps just to get it to set up to do something. And then your beans have to be accessing the database directly, and you have to be controlling the transactions the way that they go into the database. For that reason, the Spring Framework was released in 2002 to try to address some of those complexities of J2EE. Most importantly, the Spring Framework provides support for dependency injection. It also provides lots of annotations that helps users develop more with less code. One of the great advantages of Spring ORM is its close integration with ORMs like Hibernate that allow us to connect to databases and handle the transaction things for us. The Spring Framework consists of several layers and modules that belong to such layers. The layers are the core module, which is essentially the basic functionality of the framework. The data access integration, which is the layer that allows us to connect with the database, ORM, and any other transaction modules. The AOP and instrumentation, which is the aspect-oriented programming, which focuses on the aspects of the units. Aspects are the modularization of a concern that cuts across multiple classes. The web layer, which is the web servlet, the WebSocket, the web portlet modules. And it also consists of the testing layer that supports test modules like JUnit or TestNG. The Spring Framework started just as a framework, but it quickly started developing into many other projects that actually become one of the web's most robust platforms, which consists of Spring Framework itself, the framework itself, the Spring Shell that allows development of command line tools that connect into the Spring Framework, the Spring Authentication, which allows the Spring Framework to provide different mechanisms of authentication, Spring Session, which allows a user client session, Spring Data, which allows the different access to data repositories, Spring Webflow, which helps define the flow of web applications, Spring AMPQ, which provides connectivity with protocols that are related to queues such as RabbitMQ, and Spring for Kafka, which connects to Apache's data streaming service. And these projects are among many others. For the next example, I'm going to assume that you have already watched the setup video, and also that you have downloaded the code that it's on the URL provided here. What we're going to be doing is that we're going to be analyzing the code sample and the progression that it follows as we make some more advanced things with the Spring Framework. First of all, let's start with the application. In this code example, what I did is that I combined the application along with some of the servlet initializer configurations. So what this thing is doing is that it's also, other than starting the application, which essentially is just the basic skeleton for this, I decided to put it so in less files. In the structure of the code, you are gonna see things like this, where there's an application and a package that is called configuration, controllers, models, and repositories. The Spring Framework is very lean. The Spring Framework is very keen into using a model view controller paradigm. And in that model view controller paradigm, I have decided to organize my classes as such. So my classes are organized into the controllers, the models, I could consider the repositories under that part, and my views, which are in my web app, WebInv folder views. You can always visit the link of my video that talks about MVC programming, or Model View Controlling Programmer. So in the class application, we're initializing and doing a little bit of configuration of the application. I guess we could have also implemented the MVC web configurer and made sure that class was also scanned for the beans that are going to resolve the templates. I decided to separate it just because, why not? I mean, in this case, just because I wanted to have a clear separation of what is configuring the general application and what is configuring the parts that are going to be using time controller. In my configuration of the Web MVC view controller, I am telling it where I am going to find the templates for my views and which resolver I am going to use for the templates, essentially who's going to translate the template into HTML, and how those resolvers should be found. In the controllers area, I start with a basic REST hello controller, which in this REST hello controller, I am mapping the address /hello into returning a string as a REST controller in hello world. First, I gotta run the application. Once it's ready, it's gonna be ready on the port 8080, and I'm gonna go into the location hello, where it's gonna return a hello world. The next step is how to show how a demo ORM controller is used. So if I go into the /demo for this controller, I can use different paths like /add and /get mapping. But what am I going to be modifying? Well, I created a book repository, which is in my repositories area called book repository. And this is essentially just a CRUD repository that it's going to tell Hibernate to utilize this to modify books. So my book class is in the models package, which essentially just has an integer for the ID that it's auto-generated, my title, the author, and just getters and setters for those fields. In my ORM controller, I am never touching a line of SQL code, and I am just letting the ORM do what it's designed for. I am generating in the response for a get with an add and a parameter that it's trying to get the title and the author, a new book where I'm setting the title and the author, and then I'm saving the result. Therefore, as the example shows in our code here, where I am going to call this book /demo/add with the author being Michelle Obama and title becoming, and then it returns save when I save that URL. So if I go into all, I'm gonna get a title with the title becoming author Michelle. Never we used a line of code. In the all, we're calling the method get users /all, we're calling the method get users using the book repository with a book find all return statement, which is essentially returning an iterable of books into the response body. The next step is what we're going to do with the time controller. Okay, so in the time controller, you have the index. I'm naming it as index, the function, and what it's expecting is the return of the view name that it's going to use. And I'm going to receive a model. And the general thing is just I'm going to receive a model that is going to have attributes, and the attributes are going to be displayed in the view. So in this model, I'm going to add the attribute name, and my name is going to go into as a value. So in the view, the index is going to do a hello world, and I'm just using HTML tags. Even I am putting a bootstrap CSS link just to make it look a little bit prettier, a header, and a paragraph that has the th text $, curly name, and this is essentially where it's going to replace inside of this name. So if I go into the /path is Juan Carlos. Hello world, Juan Carlos. Now let's try to do a little bit something more interesting. Why don't we mix the ORM with time, which Thymeleaf is a modern server-side template engine for Java, and it integrates quite well with the Spring framework. So going back, we're actually then now mapping the /books URL just for the get method, and in our get in that we're gonna get a new book, which is essentially the one that we could create in case that it's saved, and then we are going to pass all the books as books, and we're gonna see that reference. This is gonna make sense in a second, the fact that it's book and books. So if we go into the books HTML, so this guy is linked with this, these two guys are linked. Then on the index, we can see that it's receiving books, and we're saying for each book as books, and it's iterating over those, and then once it leaves, we only have the URL, which is referenced by this @. This is referencing the URL, and this is referencing the model attribute. We also have the model book, which is the object related in the controller to this new one, which is the one that we're gonna catch. So it's gonna create create an object whose title, whose attribute title, and it's determined by this star curly bracket, and this star author is related by both of those. Then it's gonna populate those attributes into the book. So essentially when we run it, that is going to give us, if we do /books, that is going to give us an area where I can put Fight Club and the author of Fight Club, and it's going to say, thank you, your entry was received. Why is it redirecting me into that? Because I'm giving the thank you template, which is essentially saying, thank you, your entry was received. And when I click next, it's taking me to /books, which is this guy. So if I go back again into this link, it's taking me back to /books. So now it is actually showing Fight Club and the author once we save it. Pretty cool, huh? I hope you actually liked this video and learned something about the Spring Framework. Thank you.